shall we have the usual round of names in Sabian symbols? I don't think I remember yours, ladies. So Anna, and now we're speaking from the hand. Katrina?
Katrina, performer of a mystery play.
Julie?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So you mean my son's Sabian symbol?
Yes.
Okay. It's
Gemini 26.
frost.
Winter frost in the woods.
Winter frost in the woods.
Oh, thank you. Richard?
My Venus.
Mine is information in the symbol of an autumn leaf. Libra 26.
Thank you. James?
Mine is Taurus 16, an old man attempting vainly to reveal the mysteries.
Great. So today we're talking about Mars. Yes, do you remember that? We were supposed to bring our Mars Sabian symbol prepared, but before we go on with that, let us just collect a few keywords for Mars. So I will start, I will give one, and then you can have a think and give your own keywords. So for me, Mars is about action. Any other ideas?
Powerful?
Conqueror and hero.
So mine is Cupid knocking on the door of a human heart.
Oh no, wait a minute. No, we're just collecting keywords. Keywords about Mars. What does Mars represent for you?
Vitality, the masculine aspect, physicality as well, and action. Karma as well too, I feel like it's the thing that creates karma. But maybe that's a personal observation.
I keep wanting to say fire, but you know, is that obvious?
Not at all.
Fire. And strength of will, and going for the goal, reaching the goal courageously, sometimes violently. Defense, the strength of defending. Warrior.
Warrior. I was just about to say warrior.
Yeah.
Richard, how about you? Any keywords?
Passion, aggression, sometimes even desire.
Yeah. There's a couple of features of Mars not included in this very comprehensive list. Military is worth thinking about. Mars the soldier. Martial, fighting. And musculature in the body, hence the relationship with physicality. There's a certain type of physicality which is just Earth. It's not a planet, it's the Earth. But Mars is the movement of the physical body and physical strength, physical power. So yes, it's the masculine principle. I like the idea that we've included the word defender as well.
Mm.
Certain positions of Mars, in particular my own in Taurus, would be more a defender than an attacker. And Mars in Cancer is rather similar. It's not really an attacking force. It's more strategic. It'll get its will, it's strategically, but it's generally we've got the idea of Mars. So we can look at the individuals now.
Yes, don't you want to go to the 3 words, the assertiveness, physical stretch, and conflict before?
Well, I think that's covered. We can just talk about it. I mean, the physical stretch is what I'm saying about the musculature. That when you work hard and you get your muscles tired and you do physical work, that's a really good way to use your Mars energy. And you can imagine that when you do that, any frustration and anger you have is put into the work that you're doing. So if you're angry, you go out and chop some wood, and you can work it out of your system. And a lot of the aggression that builds up in a person is because we just don't get enough physical work. And if you're in a bad mood, you go out for a long walk fast, and far, so you get tired. It's hard to stay in a bad mood when you do that. And that's a good way to think about mood management. Another feature of Mars is we've talked about action and therefore movement and motion. Well, if you think about moving out, which would be X, out, motion, or E, motion, then you have this emotional quality of Mars in the true sense of the word, that it's trying to push out its feelings that it doesn't want to push it out into the world. Let me just ask you a apparently indirect question. What would you say was the most emotional zodiac sign? Quick answer.
Pisces.
Cancer.
Cancer.
Oh, she's Cancer. Heidi?
Cancer.
Cancer. Richard, do you know?
I would have said Pisces.
Pisces.
Cancer.
Cancer. And you're answering on behalf of more or less the whole population. However, the 3 water signs, we have to include Scorpio, whose emotions are slower expressed but deeper. The 3 water signs are in positions 2, 3, and 4 in emotionality. So very definitely water signs are emotional, but there's one sign which
Aries.
is, which one?
Aries, right?
Aries is
yeah,
right.
Aries.
Yeah.
It's direct emotion.
It's fiery emotion rather than watery emotion. They get irritable, they get angry, they get belligerent really quickly. And it's because of this Mars energy. The ruler of Aries is Mars. And you have this emotion, a fiery emotion associated with Mars. And that's what gives rise to aggression. When somebody's got more emotion than they can actually hold, then they'll push it out in a Mars-like way aggressively, and that brings up conflict very often. So we were studying that particular sort of phenomenon. That's what we're going to talk about tonight in relationship to your Mars.
Okay. Shall we start to collect the Sabian symbols for Mars? Okay.
Mine is Cupid knocking on the door of a human heart. But yeah, my Mars is conjunct my Saturn, and obviously there has been this whole series of karmic repetitions where I got delivered the blueprint of my karma in the men that have crossed my path. And yeah, I mean, in a way, when Cupid knocks, now I see it's more, I have a bit more discernment in my journey of merging love and wisdom. And in my romantic ambitions, no matter the persistence of the butterflies. Yeah, so if my sun leads and my Mars assists, I'm kind of grateful in this moment that I had the chance to have so many karmic soulmate relationships that were in essence a representation of the inability of my father to be a father. So that's where I'm at with that. And of course, yes, all the emotions. I am very interested in my love life.
Mars often takes the initiative, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Yes, I am learning to not be so fiery about it. Like, yes, I don't mind taking some initiative though.
Cupid, you see, is lovely and beautiful and seductive and like brings us experiences, but it's actually completely ruthless.
Yes.
We're dominated by a god, and we have no real choice in the matter. And like we just sort of walk blindly into this lovely feeling, and our life is torn asunder. You know, it's all right. It's great when you're young and free and everything, but there comes a time when it is appropriate to kind of choose more wisely, which is what you said you're doing. You're becoming more discerning. In that.
Yes.
If it weren't for Saturn there, this mother with her children on the stairs, sort of training the more innocent childlike aspect of you towards the greater social kind of awareness, that self-restraint might not be quite as easy for you.
Okay, Julie.
So Gemini 27, a gypsy coming out of the forest. Moving away from nature into structured ways to grow in consciousness. Civilization, stepping into involvements that enable growth. Find our place only when we spend money and time enthusiastically. I really like that one. So yeah, stepping into involvements that enable growth. There's something about me though that finds it hard to step into involvements. So I don't know, James, whether there's something that's holds me back.
That's exactly right. I mean, the gypsy's wild, and
right.
Is only coming out of the forest towards civilization. It's not as though we're talking about a gypsy going home for a visit to the forest. We're talking about a gypsy tiptoeing out of the forest to have a look at civilization and see what it would be like not to be quite so wild. And it happens to be the case for you, unusually, although there's one other member of the group also has this, funnily enough, to have Mars what's called out of bounds. The planetary positions that we're describing, like in zodiac signs, that's the latitude, the side to side movement, but there's also an up and down movement in the sky. This is called the longitude, and there's a band like that circles the planet 23.5 degrees up and down, exactly the same as the equator. And within that band, all of the planets appear most of the time, and they kind of go up and down to the limits. However, very rarely, only some of them, not all of them, go outside of that range. And that's called out of bounds. So you have a Mars there, and it's rather unusual. You also have Venus there, and
oh my goodness,
that suggests what you find normal, society finds out of bounds.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, something like that. And you know, your Mars out of bounds, the gypsies out of bounds. Basically, society doesn't approve of gypsies because they enjoy themselves and dance and have fun and steal fruit and all that. You know, they live in the old way, the pagan way, and so society considers gypsies to be out of bounds. And here's you're trying to sort of like relate to civilization and not be quite as out of boundsy and wildy, but that's a challenge. It doesn't end just because you get to a certain age. You know, you're still, you know, taking assertive action in groups of people that go swimming in salt water in the middle of winter, you know, and considering that relatively normal.
Yeah, and you know what somebody said to me recently, because she's, I don't know, got a very good job, works in London, not obviously thought I was a bit odd because she calls me, what she called me, socially, what's it she calls me, Richard?
Challenge.
You've got no social boundaries. You've got no social boundaries.
So it develops a growth in consciousness to be this way. You know, it's not just shallow and fun looking. It's actually growthful. You're awakening. Anyone who's testing the boundaries by behaving differently from convention is likely to be on the margins of the awakening people.
Oh, okay. Looking at things in a different way, finding different ways to look at things, and
even more than looking, of course, you know, doing what is unacceptable and saying, well, look, I'm doing it. Try to stop me, you know. That's where the pioneer lives, isn't it? In that margin.
okay. Well, this is great. I love hearing about this because it makes me then feel like, oh, actually, I'm not so strange after all. Then, you know.
I'm trying to say strange is good rather than you're not strange.
or I don't have any, you know, I don't have to necessarily rein it in. You know, it's growthful for me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there will be other considerations and concerns, but being antisocial in some way isn't essentially wrong, you know, any more than the gypsies are a wrong group of people. You know, it's just nonsense. But
yeah, but what about when I was nursing then, and I liked having rules and regulations and doing what I was supposed to do in nursing and wear a uniform and make sure I mean, maybe it felt safe because I knew what I was supposed to be doing.
The moon in Pisces likes institutional order.
Oh, okay.
You know what's what, you know what you're supposed to do, so you can't always be Mars-like. That would make you so tired being Mars-like all of the time.
Absolutely.
Mercury, right? You know, so the moon is where you relax, and where you actually relax is where the ocean of your Pisces moon is boundaried by the shoreline of institutions and their rules, you know.
It's Katrina.
An ancient pottery bowl filled with violets.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how do you
And-
interpret that with your
Yeah, that's the point. I cannot afford doing this because I have this pot of violets in this fragile pot to walk around and attend to. But I would love to do all this like Julie does. But okay, but also I can say that this Mars under this Sabian mystery really relates to the way I live and to the way I feel myself. And I think it's even more than this sun degree, which is performer of a mystery play. I very much feel myself in this Mars pottery and flowers in it. And I have an explanation because this Mars is the ruler of my chart, and it's because I have ascendant Scorpio, and there are two rulers, it's Mars and Pluto, and in its lower octave, yeah, can I say this? It's Mars, and so I think it's a very strong acting energy in my chart. What it means for me is the art of simplicity. I love this image very much because it is very simple, because it combines two as if not related things together. One is very strong, which is this bowl, and then there's fragile violets in it, and it gives the impression of both this strength and this subtlety, and it gives me the whole universe, because I feel this energy as not intruding, but it's that you have to be respectful And okay, and I like to create such an atmosphere everywhere where I go. It's in my house or where I have my office. Everywhere where I go, I try to present this beauty, but at the same time, I'm never weak. And I also try to encourage in other people, since this Mars is in the 3rd house where I meet anybody, my surroundings. These are little kids with whom I work, and my family as well, sister. And everywhere I go, I try to encourage people to be strong, but at the same time not brutal. So yeah. Okay. And what I can also then add is that Aquarius is the sign of communication, and it's the sign of ideas of my ideas, which I'm trying to present in this 3rd house, which is the house of communication, are ideas of a very it's just, if I said that I'm trying to tell that this pottery bowl, and its beauty and strength, it's just, it represents the way the consciousness shows itself in the object. But it can be also in the human body. It can be whatever forms we have around. So I'm always trying to put in this pottery bowl something which cannot be explained in words. It's just no words. You just have to be quiet when you look at this. And the same when I look at you, like souls, there is nothing to say actually, because it's just beautiful, and that's it. And that's what I want to say with objects, with people, with my relations, with everything. That's it. And of course, there are very nice aspects to this Mars. I like this aspect with Neptune, which is in Scorpio sign, and it's in the 12th house. And I think it is a very good support to this decisive and courageous Mars energy, because then it gives depth to this as well. Okay, that's it.
Yes,
Can I say
Julie.
something?
Yes.
I could talk, but you know, there is no sense in doing it.
I was fascinated with the idea of the bowl. I was thinking of containment, you know, keeping something contained and protected, and something beautiful and vulnerable. I mean, that's basically what you were saying, but the contain bit is something that I aspire to.
I do.
Yeah, I was going to mention the same thing, like, because you're so Aquarian in nature, and the Aquarius holds the picture of water, but is not of the water. And the picture is the containment of the wisdom or the ideas. And then the flower it's an offering of nature, right? It's a symbol of devotion. To me, a flower, because it's given, it's like a fruit. We don't really, well, we can take the flower, but it will also fall. It will also, so it's an offering. You know, some more poetry over your poetry.
Yeah, exactly. This is the devotion of all this. I read on James's site where Mars is one of the expressions and the last one, I think I could go for is this devotion energy. I read that there can be also, inwardly it's depression, and then outwardly aggression, and then assertion, and the last one, as you, Heidi, said, is devotion. Exactly, it's devotion. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're seeing here the sensitivity that's possible with Mars. The idea of the ancient pottery bowl is that I imagine a Japanese woman has this very precious bowl that's been broken once and repaired with gold, you know, to make it very special, and it's their treasure. And it's so fragile, actually. The strength of it is that it can control Mars energy by its fragility. Because it's so fragile, everyone just takes care around it. So the potential strength of Mars is very definitely contained, but not by any force, but by the vulnerability of fragility. It's a very subtle message. And it's in the expression of Aquarius called alchemy. Alchemy is how we transmute situations from one thing to another. And one way of doing that was using finesse, very, very subtle use of the minimum amount of power and action. It's quite Zen-like, isn't it? Really.
It's perfect. It's my most favorite of all symbols, this one.
Oh, yeah.
Now my brother in arms, Richard. Do you want to talk about your Sabian sign?
Okay, so my Mars is Libra 16, a boat landing washed away. And when I first came across this, I didn't like it. I didn't like the idea that I can't win against nature. However strong I think what I have built may be, nature will always wipe it away in an instant. And if I try and link this to Mars, which in my case is also conjunct Jupiter and conjunct Mercury, it reminds me that even though occasionally things do get washed away, things that I've built get washed away, and treated as if they're nothing, it doesn't diminish my enthusiasm to keep trying and to rebuild either the same thing or something slightly different. So yeah.
Let me interrupt you there. The image for Libra 15 in conjunction with your Mars is circular paths.
Yes.
And the idea of going around and around. It's not really a circular diagram, though. It's a spiraling. So you're revisiting, you know, the same pattern with a different consciousness.
Yes.
And that's motivated. The energy to do that is motivated because of the Mars.
Mm.
Yeah. So I said before, and I don't mind saying again, that I'm not an astrologer, but when I read astrological texts, including some written by James, I see a lot in the descriptions that are given, and so I identify with it in that way, rather than having an innate sense of what all this means. What does Mars in Libra mean? What does Mars in the 9th house mean? And so on. I have to read about that in order to understand it more.
Yeah, me too.
But Richard, in the 9th house, you said?
Yes.
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 Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you make of the image of the shoreline? You know, this is the relationship between the safety of the shoreline and the dangers of the sea. That's the boat landing. The boat comes in from the sea to shore and it wants a landing, and it's not there.
What do I make of that? The relationship between the ocean and the shore.
And the absence of the obvious bridge, you know.
Okay, so
There's no safe landing, is there?
if I think of the ocean as spirit, consciousness, and the shore as humanity, how does consciousness come ashore? How does it reach the shore if the boat landing's been washed away? So maybe my job is to, when it is washed away, and it has been a number of times in my life, is not to become disheartened, but to try something else, because I think consciousness and spirit does want to come ashore into each and every one of us. And maybe my job is partly to do with finding ways in which that can be achieved. Making sense?
The image also applies to the unconscious realms, doesn't it? Bringing into manifestation that which is in the unconscious realms, trying to make that bridge possible. And I mean, when a boat landing is washed away, you don't just replace it, do you? You build a strong one, a stronger one, wouldn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
I had an insight about Richard, that there is a solution for him. He has chosen to live on the Isle of Wight, which is the boat itself. He will never reach the mainland. He is already in the right place.
I think that's a good point. If you're in the right place, you don't have to cross the stormy waters. You know, so if you're doing what you need to do with your life, then this image doesn't really trouble you, does it?
No.
And I suppose I question, do you have to rebuild it? Does it have to be there?
Well, there are a lot of derelict piers around the country. And I imagine, I don't know in every case, but there is a period in which the derelict structure remains derelict and idle and unrepaired and unstrengthened before people come together to say, okay, we want this structure rebuilt and it needs to be stronger. So let's examine what brought it down in the first place and do what we can to make it stronger.
Only if it needs to be rebuilt.
Say again?
One of the phrases
Well, sorry.
Shifting of consciousness following a catastrophic loss. But also what Julie's point is, I think, death is freedom. We should allow ourselves to surrender occasionally. In other words, your boat landing is washed away. That's it. Move on. You know, don't rebuild it. Move on. And
yeah.
I think you've done that sometimes, haven't you?
I have. Yeah.
You know, you've been quite assertive in one direction and then stopped, been more assertive in a different direction.
Yeah. So how does this all relate to you, Anna?
Not sure. I'm not sure. Is it me already? Nothing further from James? Yeah. So my Mars is in Gemini 18. Two Chinese men talking Chinese. The way I see this is that my two Chinese talking Chinese, it means just a bubble in the middle of somewhere. There's a community out there, and you can be speaking about anything in front of a million people and they don't understand you. I used to feel this when I lived in the UK, because I kind of could talk over the phone with my mother, personal business or something like that, and no one would understand. So I know how it feels to be in this bubble. It kind of makes me feel outside, which is not very pleasant for me. And this applied to my Mars. My Mars is retrograde in an intersected house in Gemini. So it kind of my feeling is that my initiative is always either misexplained, misunderstood, poorly guided. I do have a lot of ideas, and then nothing happens really. The action gets lost in this frustration to being understood, because I'm speaking Chinese in a world of, I don't know, Portuguese or English people. But I speak something different. So I guess this resonates with your shoreland, right? Maybe I need to go to an island as well.
You can come here.
Yeah.
You have horrible weather.
Oh.
You also have Mars out of bounds.
Oh.
Yes, Heidi. Muted.
Yes, there's a lot of jungle noise, so I try to mute.
Thank you.
There's something that I read recently, actually this morning, and maybe it speaks to that idea of feeling like not understood or unable to communicate your message. And it said we need to be willing to continue to speak their language first, so they can realize what's possible from inside their veil and concept-based experience, before they can truly begin to recognize and implement the language of awareness and awakening. This requires those awake enough to an extent to pretend to be asleep. Play the game, play a role, be a paradox, yet relatable enough to pique your fellow self's interests. Show up in a way that they can relate to, even if it's not always the most comfortable to the one who is awake. It's an act of love for those who suffer more blindness than you do. I mean, there's a bit of, he has a pretty arrogant voice, so it's sometimes a bit cringy, but it spoke to what you just said, so I hope it brings you something.
Thank you.
There's a sense of specialty language implied, isn't there, in this? And you have that, don't you? You're familiar with jargon.
In my profession, yes.
Yeah, and a 10th house Mars in Gemini, you know, you're going to be an assertive communicator using jargon, and you argue your case, don't you? Your ability to do your job depends upon your familiarity with your jargon, and also the willingness you have to be assertive about it. And the out of bounds quality might take that into the higher realms, you know, the furthest reaches of assertiveness. You're aggressive at work, for example?
I don't think so, but probably I am. I mean, I am try not to be aggressive.
What are you doing?
I have a very techie work. Don't bother about it. But yes, I think I am assertive. Yes, I try to be clear in my mind. I'm being clear, and I'm not demanding anything. I'm not telling anyone to do this, do that. I'm not the boss of anyone. But yes, there are some things that I want accomplished my way. So yes, if I have a contract or something like that, yes.
Opposite Neptune, your Mars.
Yeah.
Has to make a difference, doesn't it? What do you think that does?
puts me in front of qualities that I cannot express, and I have Neptune empty, so I have no planets there. So it kind of confronts me with this emotional side that I feel I don't have. Everybody has emotions, of course, but I am unable to deal with them and express them in a way that I find balanced or nurturing, even to myself, not just to others, but also to myself. So there's this feeling that my language, be it the language of work or assertiveness or emotional language, it's not well conveyed. It's not, I'm speaking the wrong language. I'm speaking a language that is not used here.
Yeah. Okay.
Only you missing. Let's learn.
Can I ask a question about
Yes.
houses?
Yes, Julie.
I wasn't, when I was talking about mine, I wasn't aware where my Mars, which house, and what effect
The
that
ninth
had.
house.
And what, ninth house, the same. Is that the same?
Same as me.
Same as you?
You've got 4 planets conjunct in a stellium in the ninth house in Gemini.
Oh.
So it's really an emphasized thing, not only in Gemini, but in the ninth house. The ninth house is the pursuit of greater knowledge, pursuit of consciousness. So on one level, it's the wish to travel and get culture shock and learn through seeing what other people do. On another level, it's further education, university or higher education. On another level, it's spiritual development or spiritual philosophy. Just, really trying to learn something at the higher level of the mind.
Yeah, I've done all of those. That's very interesting. Yeah, thank you.
So my Mars is in Taurus, 20th degree of Taurus. Wind, clouds, and haste. And the sense I have here is this is spiritual forces. It's like you can see the evidence of the wind, whereas you can't see the wind. It's that image. So Taurus 20 is all about the evidence of something else, which is the forces of spirit, and so I'm inclined towards doing something without knowing why, sort of guided by some feeling that might well be spiritual forces. And more and more as I sort of trust it more and get more familiar with behaving as though it's true, I feel like what I'm doing is responding to some unseen energy field that's moving me in a certain direction. And when I was younger, I just didn't get this at all. I was much more concerned with the fact that the sun was conjunct my Mars, and so I was thrusting my sense of self into the world, trying to achieve and be the leader of things and get ahead. And I didn't really do that with any awareness of being guided. It was very self-determined because of the Sun-Mars conjunction. But I think in a beautiful way, actually, what awakened my interest in another dimension of life was playing rugby. And it's such a full-on experience. You cannot play a violent sport without being absolutely present. And some of the things that you have to do in rugby are very difficult indeed, like catching the ball when it's falling from a great height and it's muddy and slippery and there's a load of people running at you. They're just about to smack into you and you've got to catch the ball and defend it. And losing myself in the game itself, and not ever being more than anyone else on the pitch. It would be an absurd position to take up. You know, we were all involved in this very beautiful dance. For me, it was anyway, and it was the graceful moves, you know, to pass the ball and to anticipate where the ball is going to be moving next, and all of that. That was the real beauty for me, which I'd never experienced before in sport, and that really moved me into another way of being. And then the next time I felt that feeling was, first of all, in Dances of Universal Peace, and then the exaltation of that, which is called zikr, a Sufi practice, like spiritual dancing, where you're just doing the same very repetitive body movements in a simple way for 4 hours is not unusual, and whilst chanting one of the beautiful names of God. And that was the final kind of thing that I needed in order to awaken. So it's very much the case that my Mars energy, the willingness and appetite I have for doing very physical work for a long time in the form of rugby or dance, or, you know, something like that, or gardening now, actually, same kind of thing. Or when I was working in the forest in Lithuania, I was chopping branches down and burning dead wood and stuff, and that was one of the most liberating experiences in my life. And it's because I was using my physical body fully. So it was only later in life that I could tie this up with anything spiritual. But this does express something that otherwise I wouldn't have understood.
Heidi, you wanted to say something?
No, I was taking it in. I was taking it in. Mm-hmm.
And now, James, when you are working in the garden, is it also a hard physical work, or is just vegetables, or what do you do in the garden?
No, I find the vegetables and that's the boring side. You know, what I like doing is lifting heavy stones from one place to another, and there's this. I live alone, and if I should, some of these stones are ridiculously big, and I can only just about move it into the wheelbarrow. It's right at the limit of my ability, and if I mess it up, if I was to drop one of those stones on my foot or something, nobody would know for days. You know, it's right on the limit of madness what I do. But that's because I know that I really concentrate. And there are certain Sufi mantras that you can practice that relate to this, you know. So it's just if I need to be strong to lift one of these stones, Ya Aziz, Ya Aziz, and if I need to hold the wheelbarrow holding this stone right on this narrow plank across the stream, you know, Martin, there's sort of Sufi practices I do to stop me from something which is quite dangerous. So it's strange to do, you know, that level of meditation where, you know, it involves a stone which is heavier than I am, you know.
Because it's quite dangerous for the spine, for everything.
It is, yeah. And that's like the same with rugby. It's a very dangerous sport, you know, and if you get it wrong, there have been deaths. You know, there's very few people that survive a rugby career without some permanent injury, you know. So it did that level of physicality. And it's not as though I'm a particularly strong or big bloke, you know, it's just challenging myself, really. And that's how it is in the garden, you know. Nobody cares what I do. It's just to keep me real, I think.
And also, it sounds like you've been moving stuff around to redesign it in some way.
Yeah, landscaping is my preferred niche in gardening. Changing the appearance, the shape of things.
Yeah.
I've kind of arranged for the sloping land to be flattened, so I can have a polytunnel there, and I've just put up a cabin, and I keep on shaping things differently. Every time a friend visits every 6 months or something. There's something new, you know. Oh, I haven't seen that before, and so I keep on building. The Taurus thing is to build, of course. Taurus.
Okay.
I want it to.
Reshaping the land. I like that. Yeah.
And local people are noticing. You know, they approve that I'm doing it my way. They notice that it's eccentric, and that's all right because I'm enjoying the land. You know, and I've got temples. As I mentioned that before. I've got temple to Puck and Bridie and a circle of 11 trees. You know.
Do you have a place for a camper van?
Just indeed, yeah. You by all means, you'd be very welcome. I've just flattened an area big enough for a van.
It's actually a smaller van now. We've just changed it. Great.
Yeah.
I got the cabin built for visitors, so that if somebody wants to visit, and there's this little, I don't know, 10-foot cabin. It's you know, big enough for a couple to hang out in. Just
Nice.
put it up. I haven't finished decorating, you know, like building it properly. It needs paneling and carpeting and electricity and so on. But that's a project for this year coming.
Wow, lovely. I can't wait. Can we enter your country?
Oh, yes. I hadn't
Need a
thought about
PCR,
that.
but, the rules will be changed. I mean, nobody comes to Ireland at this time of year. You know, the Irish don't. All the Irish are somewhere else at the moment. You know.
Do you
yes, I saw some in the street yesterday.
Sorry.
Say again.
It's true that the Irish are here. I saw some in the street yesterday. We had a beautiful Irish band. Yeah, I understand. We have to come in summer. Yeah.
It was not possible for me to get down to the supermarket yesterday because of the floods we had.
I would not like that.
And the telephone's out. I can't find out where my plumber is to replace my heating. My heating's off, so I got no hot water.
Oh,
but you have brilliant internet. That's funny.
Yeah, strange the relative importance of things, but it doesn't matter because I can keep myself warm in one room.
Fire.
I've got a gas stove for cooking with food. If I need to wash, then I can build that fire up so that this room is really hot and put the kettle on and wash in this room. I can do all this necessary, you know. It's just a way of life. I mean, I spend most of my life camping, so
Yeah.
I don't feel inconvenienced when the electricity goes off. I got guitars, you know, so I can amuse myself as well. So Mars, there it is. Do we understand Mars a bit better?
Now, somehow can I say a word? Because you spoke about this right day, and I somehow connected this Mars, my Mars activities I had in my childhood for 10 years when I did this gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics, which is a combination of strength, and also it is a sort of art because the pianist is playing the music and you are supposed to do it all beautifully, not like sports. It should look like a performance, but still it takes from your body a lot of strength, a lot of physical endurance, and it's somehow in this pottery bowl I also see this image.
Absolutely, a perfect example.
Yeah.
What's Heidi done with your Mars?
Yes, that really speaks to me, Katrina, because I was my first profession was ice dancer, and I have Mars in Sagittarius, conjunct Saturn, which is interesting because Aquarius in we could say in exaltation, it could be a dancer, like somebody who does things with grace. There's a wind element, there's the air element with the dancing. But then with my Mars in there, with my Saturn in there, my discipline was really an issue. Not because I didn't have it, it's just that my parents didn't have it. And it was such a guilt thing to drive me there and to take me there that I suffered a lot to be able to do it. And then the moment that I fell and I broke my shoulder, I went back on the ice and I noticed like that Martian thing, right? Where I didn't dare to jump anymore. And for me, when there was no competition, when there was no Mars, it seemed pointless. And I didn't have the discipline or anybody to guide me, to tell me like, listen, we're gonna get you through this psychologically. I was a kid, so I didn't really continue to do that. So that's interesting that you mentioned these gymnastics. I find it a bit similar.
Yeah, it is a lot of similar things in this dance skating, because it's also beautiful, but it's very hard to achieve.
It's very hard, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you fall on the ice, it's something.
Yeah, and it hurts a lot.
It hurts, yes.
Richard.
Yeah, I wondered, James, if you could say something about what happens when we, or if we, frustrate our Mars and deny Mars its expression.
I think I'll pick up more on what Katrina was summarizing earlier. That was something I picked up many, many years ago, and it's excellent. There are 4 levels of expression of Mars, the highest of which is devotion. So when I was talking about my prayerful dance approach, that was an expression of devotion. And very often the highest sort of devotee give themselves body and soul to God, don't they? So that highest level is devotion. The second level is assertiveness, where you know what you want and you go for it into the world. The third level is aggression. So if you're denying your assertiveness, for example, through sport, all sports are assertive, one way or another. You're either competing with yourself or another. So sport is the highest level of assertiveness from the Mars point of view. But if you deny that, you can become aggressive. So that's why it's associated with anger and irritability. But if you don't get your anger out, it's even worse. And you internalize that aggression against yourself, and that becomes depression then. Such as, for example, in the extreme form, it's self-harm, isn't it? That's what depressed kids do. They cut themselves. Well, that's an aggressive act against yourself, So, rescuing somebody from depression, it's actually a stage in the right direction to make them angry. Strangely, I told you my story when my client I had, a young man, he said, I want to commit suicide, James. And I said, oh, well, there's some good methods. You could use pills, or you could jump off a roof, or it takes a bit more courage, or you could jump in front of a bus. And he got absolutely furious with me. He was belligerently angry with me. And every time in future he thought about suicide, he would instead get really angry with me, because I remind him of suicide. And so instead of being able to kill himself, he was just angry at me all of his life. So it takes a certain amount of courage to do that with a client, and I don't recommend it. But that's what I used to do when I was in my 30s. I was quite.
You saved the life.
Yeah. So aggression is better than depression, isn't it?
These 4 levels, what teaching is this from? And all the planets have this?
I don't know if all the planets have them. It'd be good if they did, and I think it'd be worth trying to work them out. And I don't remember the source. It was some reputable source, like Robert Hand, probably, or one of my mentors in the good old days, before computers.
Thank you.
Anyone final words? No.
It's interesting that Mars is now in Scorpio from the 5th of December, and it goes there and is there till the 16th of January. And so we all have Marses, our Marses in Scorpio now. So it's worth thinking about it and where in the chart they are. Mine is in the 12th house now, but I don't know where is yours transiting. It's interesting because we have this newsletter, Anna, in Mars in Scorpio.
Hey, Mars in Scorpio can be a very profound source of healing energy. Sometimes healing is soft and gentle, but sometimes it has to be quite intrusive, like a surgeon's knife or a type of counselor. Certain counselors are like this. They're in you know, sharp in their commentary. And that's
exactly what you just described, James, about your client.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've got a Scorpio midheaven.
Right.
I'm Scorpio like in my career and my occupation, and I've got a Mars Sun conjunction, so I'm a Mars like kind of guy. You know, I was the same in different professions. I've always been pushy.
You want to cut through the crap.
Exactly, so yeah, you woman after my own heart. Cut through the crap.